Shalom Israel. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Al Shai Ba'Shem Kakadash, the brothers and the apostles, and elders great millstone for teaching us his true peace and blessings. To the hopeful collective Israel, Shalom. Yahweh is the name of the Heavenly Father in Hebrew. Ba'Shem is the name, and Yahweh Shai is the name of the begotten Son. Back on our lesson, and today we're going to go into the wars and rumors of wars that we are seeing, as well as the tensions that Yahweh Ba'Shem Al Shai is constantly building between the nations in order to reach that breaking point, which is going to be World War III, or aka Armageddon. And you're seeing the build-up taking place right before your very eyes. Now, I do have two quick articles I do want to dive into just to go on the situation at hand, as well as one quick video to go a little more in depth. And Lord's will is a bit fine. Now, it says U.S. dispatches warships after China and Russia sent naval patrol near Alaska. And over the course of these few months, and even back last year, you've been constantly seeing these tensions being built between the nations. And it was ultimately through the spent prophet Yahweh Ba'Shem Al Shai once again, because the Lord is the one orchestrating and doing all these things in order to reach that breaking point once again, which is going to be World War III, which is an end time prophecy, man, going to show the times that we are in. The Lord's not playing, man. I mean, those that don't repent and take heed, this is what you better be caught up in the midst of, man. You know, you don't want to be part of that number that's left behind and caught up in this great destruction which Yahweh Ba'Shem Shai is going to bring upon this place, man. And that great destruction can be by the way of thermonuclear missiles, and you're seeing the steps that are being taken in order to reach that point, which is why we're going to get these articles right here to go into the situations and the things that are going down and the build up towards World War III. Now, let's continue on this lesson. It's like I'm going to start the intro, but read a little bit into this and we'll get that video and we'll get the other article. Now, so U.S. dispatches warships after China and Russia sent naval patrol near Alaska. Combined naval patrol appear to be largest such flotilla to approach U.S. territory in highly provocative, expert says. Now look at this video right here.
China and Russia sent a huge naval patrol near Alaska, with at least 11 Chinese and Russian ships coming very close to Alaska but never entering U.S. waters. Reportedly, 4 U.S. destroyers and P-8 aircraft were dispatched to shadow their patrol, and it was reportedly a historic first, as this was the largest flotilla to ever approach the United States, which is why the U.S. described this as highly provocative. I'll let us stay in the loop. China and Russia sent a...
And once again, tensions are high. Now, let's read a little bit in this article, and we'll get the other one and get the few scripts I got. Going to the point. Now, it's the U.S. dispatched 4 Navy warships as well as a reconnaissance airplane after multiple Chinese and Russian military vessels carried out a joint naval patrol near Alaska last week. So America pretty much doing a show of force, flexing their arm, as you've been seeing North Korea doing a lot, especially when the U.S. and I believe South Korea had that joint training drill. You had North Korea come out and pretty much do a show of force, to show off their might, their military. As well as they've been doing those constant those missile testings, as well as going back to Russia, constantly making these threats against Ukraine, as well as the U.S. to use thermonuclear capabilities. So things have been going down, man. Showing you the friction and the tensions that's in the air. But the combined naval patrol, which the Wall Street Journal first reported, appears to be the largest such flotilla to approach U.S. territory, according to experts that spoke to the outlet. It's a historical first. Brent Sadler, a retired Navy captain and senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, told the Journal. I'll read the last bit right here. I'm going to get the article, and that says, he also said the flotilla's proximity to Alaska was a highly provocative maneuver given Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine and political tensions between the U.S. and China over Taiwan. The flotilla has since left, and you've also been seeing things going down over there in Africa with the coup that's taken place. So once again, things are going down. Let's see if we get anything else right here. Pretty much all we need in this article, but let's get this other one right here. There's a highly provocative U.S. sent destroyers after stunning Russia-China joint naval operation off coast of Alaska. So pretty much going to the same thing, but see if we can get anything else out of it. China and Russia conducted a joint naval operation near the coast of Alaska earlier this week in a highly provocative move amid the war in Ukraine that triggered a robust U.S. military response. As I was mentioning earlier, the U.S. doing pretty much a show of their might, flexing the arm. 11 Russian and Chinese ships near the Aleutian Islands, if I said that correctly, off the coast of Alaska earlier this week near the maritime boundary Russia shares with the U.S., but the fleets never entered U.S. waters, according to the Wall Street Journal. So pretty much going to the same thing. See what this video has to offer right here.
В 11:10 я начну выдавать, что я обнаружу, начну выдавать великие дистанции.
And we're seeing this goes to show that these nations are preparing to go to war, preparing for a fight. Now you're starting to have these nations start to, really rally up, which we're going to get in a little bit going to Joel 3, So you're especially going to have these nations come up together to go against Babylon the Great, aka America. But this time sheet scripture right here is in Matthew 24, 3-8. Now it says, "And as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto privately, saying, Tell us, when shall these things be, and what shall be a sign of thy coming, of the end of the world?" And when it says the end of the world, it's not speaking of the whole end of the entire earth, but speaking of the end of an age, the end of an era, the end of this devil's rulership. But it's going to list off these end time signs that we would see that would take place before our Lord Yahweh Shai would return. And wars and rumors of wars is part of that. Now it says, "And Yahweh Shai answered and said to him, Take heed that no man deceive you, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am anointed, and shall deceive many. As you are also seeing many false prophets arising and teaching false doctrine, leading our people astray." And that's why scripture going to Malachi, I believe 3:18, how you're to discern between who serveth the Most High and who serveth him not. A lot of these guys are really trying to keep you here and lead you astray. Dealing with all these other Israelite camps that are still promoting, like the MOTB is a spiritual mark and all that wickedness, man, which ultimately will lead you up to get destroyed. A lot of these guys have blood on their hands. And that's why you should know by now who your true teachers are. And, what's going to be wary and careful who you are listening to. But this is the main track, verse 6, which is the main point of this lesson. "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars." So that's what we're seeing now, the constant tensions that's being built between the nations in order to reach that breaking point, which is going to be World War III. One more time from on top. "And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet." Verse 7, "For nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places." And you've been seeing these plagues and these pestilences, these judgments that Yahweh Shai is sending out upon this earth. Once again, going to show the times that we are in. And the Lord is not playing, man. Verse 8, just to kick it off, "All these are the beginning," or I should say to end it off, "all these are the beginning of sorrows." We're just in the beginning of this, man. And Yahweh Shai very soon is going to kick into a whole nother gear. That's why I skipped going to Matthew 24, and I believe the 22nd verse, going to Lord hastening those days. So we're seeing so many things happen and taking place as we speak. Revelation 11:14, also to bring it home and prove that World War III is prophesied in the Bible and is coming very, very soon. That says the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. When you go into the definition of the word woe, basically it's desolation, destruction. It says great sorrow or distress. So we get anything else right here. Deep suffering, misfortune, affliction, grief, calamity. That's all we need right there. Now it says the second woe is past, the second woe being the Second World War. And behold, the third woe cometh quickly, the Third World War, which is coming fast, man. And that's why you're seeing a lot of these nations preparing for a fight, preparing to go to war, doing training, drills. And as you've been seeing, as I mentioned earlier, North Korea doing these missile testings, dealing with the ICBM, seeing how far they can be shot from one place to another. Joel 3:9-13, and I believe I also brought up Russia making these threats against the U.S. and Ukraine to use thermonuclear capabilities. And those are not some simple threats that you just make, against a nation. I believe they also said they could pretty much wipe out the U.S. with, 2 or 3 missiles and all that. And those are not just some simple threats that you just, throw out. Let's book of Joel 3:9 through 13. Threaten to pretty much wipe out your whole nation. But just wanted to go on to show those tensions, man, and how, high that friction really is. For lack of better words, if I use that word correctly. But verse 9 said, proclaim ye among the Gentiles, prepare war. Wake up the mighty men, let all the men of war draw near, let them come up. And now go into these nations. Now verse 10, be your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Being those farming tools into weapons of war. Now so let the weak say, I am strong. Now you have nations that are starting to, stand up against America, preparing for a fight. Verse 11, assemble yourselves and come all you heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be wakened and come to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, for there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put you in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe, ready for the picking. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great. So Yahweh Hashem Shai is getting ready to destroy this place, man. I've even seen the tensions that's been building between the nations in order to once again reach that breaking point, that boiling point, man. Which is going to be World War III, or aka Armageddon. So you have these nations that are preparing for war, preparing for a fight. We're sitting going to those drills and these missile testings and all that stuff, man. Constantly doing a show of force of their military might, flexing their arm. Jeremiah 50:9 to also go into all these nations that are going to come up against Babylon. Now, for a little, I'll raise and cause to come against Babylon, which is America, an assembly of great nations from the country, and they shall set themselves in array against her. From thence she shall be taken, their arrows shall be as the mighty expert men, none shall return in vain. So those arrows are speaking of those thermonuclear missiles, and all of them are going to hit their mark. They're not going to be shot into the air, randomly explode. They're not going to crash into each other. They're not going to, land in the ocean and miss the destination. All these missiles are going to hit their mark, and Yahweh is going to be the one directing it to hit those locations, man. And when you go into the scripture in Isaiah 13, America is going to be completely taken out. It goes into how this place will never be inhabited again. And also, let's get a couple other verses. Let's see, I think around 24. Let's get, let's get 24. Now it says, I have laid a snare for thee, and thou art also taken, O Babylon, and thou wast not aware, thou art found, and also caught up, because thou hast striven against Yahweh Bashem Shai. And you also get Isaiah 47:1, come sit in the dust, O daughter of Babylon. So America is going to be brought low. Especially speaking of you Edomites, man. You devils. Now verse 25, which is one of my favorite scriptures, man, because this is, makes it clear, of what those arrows are speaking of, and the houses war will be completely different when you also get Isaiah 9:5. But they see right here, Yahweh Bashem Shai hath opened his armory and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation. You also get Isaiah 34 to also go into that destruction. And this should make it clear of, what this is speaking of right here, man. One more time, the Lord hath opened his armory and hath brought forth the weapons of his indignation, for this is the work of the Lord, God of hosts, in the land of the Chaldeans. This armor being those missiles, man. So I skip to go into how the Lord has created the waster to destroy. And also get Isaiah 9:5 I was mentioning, for every battle of the warrior is with confused noise and garments, road and blood. And I always like to use a example of the movie 300. Them clashing with shields and swords, screaming on the battlefield. But this is going to show you it's going to be something completely different. Now watch this. And garments, road and blood, but this shall be with burning and fuel of fire. What do you think that's speaking of? Those missiles, man, those ICBMs, those intercontinental ballistic missiles are going to be shot from one place on the earth into the other side, And the main destruction is going to take place over here in Babylon the Great, man, America. Now, that was, brought up a few scriptures in Isaiah 13, how this place will never be inhabited again. So great destruction has come to this place, man. Now we're going to shut it down with Habakkuk 2 and 3 just to, close it out. And it's like if I kind of rambled a little bit, but Lord will get the point across and you're edified throughout the whole thing. And tie these points to get the best of my ability. Now, this Habakkuk 2 and 3 to shut it down. As this is for the vision as yet for no point in time. What is that vision speaking of? Let's get the NLT. This vision is for a future time. Going into these prophecies. Now it says, for the vision is yet for no point in time. And guess what? We are in those appointed times as written and spoken of in the scriptures. Going to show the times that we are in. And that we're nearing the end of this place. Because as we got in Matthew 24 in the 3rd verse, it goes into what should be signs like coming of the end of the world. And it started to list off those signs that we would see now take place. And one of the main points of the lesson going to those wars and rumors of wars. So those that don't repent, those that don't take heed, those that don't seek out Yahweh Shema Shai will be destroyed and will be left behind. Simple as that. But let's continue on. As for the vision, if only put the time, but they shall speak and not lie, they would tarry, wait for it, because it shall come. It will not tarry, meaning it will not delay. So these things will happen and will come to pass, whether you believe it or not. You know? As though it tarry, wait for it, because it shall come. It will not tarry, meaning it will not delay. Also going to the scripture how his word should not return unto him void. So everything to be fulfilled and come to pass as it is written. Because the Lord is not a liar. So once again, pretty much the main point of the lesson. It's like if I kind of rambled a little bit, but Lord's will, I brought the point home and you were edified throughout the whole thing. But ultimately going to these wars, rumors of wars, and these tensions that you are seeing, and how Yahweh Shai is stirring the pot between these nations in order to reach that boiling point, which is going to be World War III, aka Armageddon. But Lord, you were edified. I do want to give all praises, all honor, and all glory to Yahweh Shai, Basham Kakadash, Deborah to the apostles, and else great millstone for teaching us this truth, peace, and blessings to the whole collective Israel and Shalom. See you next one, Lord willing.